decorated Navy SEAL, quiet, injured, and freshly home from deployment, gets wrongly arrested by a racist cop who refuses to check the evidence that would clear him. As the cop escalates the humiliation, the SEAL remains silent, carrying scars the world cannot see. But when the truth emerges, and a powerful hidden ally steps forward, justice shifts in a single moment, revealing the sacred weight of honor, sacrifice, and dignity. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? And if you believe silent heroes deserve to have their stories told, please subscribe. It helps bring more voices like this into the light. The first thing the crowd heard was the dull thud of a man's shoulders hitting the side of a police cruiser. It was sudden, so sudden that shoppers outside the small town grocery store froze mid-step, startled by the force of the confrontation. The man pinned against the metal wasn't shouting. He wasn't resisting. He simply stood there, tall, steady, broad-shouldered, his breathing calm despite the officer's aggression. His hands rested behind his back, wrists locked in cuffs that dug into healing scars. His eyes, gray, tired, and threaded with the weight of long nights far from home, never once rose in defiance. Officer Reed, gripping the back of the man's shirt, leaned close enough for the tension in his jaw to be seen by anyone paying attention. "You think you people can flash a fake badge and walk around like heroes?" he muttered. The crowd absorbed the words but remained silent. No one moved. No one intervened. They watched the injustice unfold the way people often do, hoping someone else would step in first. The man against the cruiser remained still. He didn't speak. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. There was a serenity in his silence, a quiet authority so out of place in the humiliating scene that it almost felt unreal. His name was Elias Ward, Navy SEAL, decorated reconnaissance specialist, survivor of events no civilian crowd would ever hear about. But at that moment, in that parking lot, he was just another target for a cop who saw the world through a narrow, bitter lens. And yet Elias said nothing. Because silence, in his life, had become its own kind of survival. People weren't sure what they were witnessing. Only that the man being arrested did not look like someone who had done anything wrong. He had walked out of the store carrying nothing more threatening than a first aid kit and a box of protein bars. But Reed had stopped him instantly, demanding ID with a tone already heavy with disdain. When Elias showed a military card, creased from years in desert pockets, Reed snatched it, glanced at it for half a second, then scoffed. "Fake. I've seen better printed in middle school." Elias hadn't spoken even then. He simply offered another piece of identification, a small black case containing a challenge coin engraved with the trident. Reed didn't even look at it. He dropped it on the pavement and stepped on it. The crowd had gasped, but still, no one intervened. Reed arrested him on the spot, claiming suspicion of stolen valor, then escalated to resisting, when Elias simply hesitated while retrieving the coin from the ground. Now, with the cuffs locked and the humiliation deepening, the crowd waited for the man to finally defend himself. They waited for anger, for indignation, for something. But Elias remained unmoving. In silence, he had learned, dignity could not be stolen. Those who looked closely would have noticed the hints of a recent deployment. The medical-grade compression sleeve beneath his jacket, the faint stiffness in his posture, the careful way he breathed as though one wrong movement might reopen wounds deeper than the physical. He had returned from his last mission only 6 weeks earlier. A nighttime operation had gone sideways, an explosion, a collapsing structure, dust filling his lungs until the world went black. He had been pulled out by 2 teammates, Hayes and Morales. Hayes didn't survive the helicopter ride home. Morales survived, but had not spoken since the incident, trapped behind psychological walls no one yet knew how to dismantle. Elias carried both men with him, every single day. He carried the memory of Hayes's final grip on his arm, the grit of sand between his teeth as he crawled towards safety. The bitter metallic taste of failure he couldn't shake. Coming home should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like walking through crowds who would never understand what had been sacrificed to keep them safe. The smells of barbecues and car exhaust mixed with the faint phantom scent of burning metal he couldn't scrub from his memory. The sound of shopping carts reminded him of the rattle of debris falling after detonations. And the worst part was the quiet, because in the quiet, all the ghosts returned. But even with the weight of all that grief, Elias never carried hatred. He never carried pride. He only carried responsibility. That was why he had walked into the store for bandages, to send a care package to Morales's mother, who had asked for something small, something comforting, something to remind her that her son still had brothers in arms watching over him. Elias never imagined he'd be arrested for it. Officer Reed paced with the swagger of someone intoxicated by his own authority. He enjoyed the small audience forming, their nervous glances feeding his ego. He wanted someone to challenge him, so he could push harder, justify the aggression he had no reason to use. Got yourself dressed up in tattoos and muscles, and thought you'd play soldier today, huh? Reed sneered loudly, ensuring everyone heard. Elias remained silent. That only enraged him. You don't talk. What cat got your tongue, big man? A whisper ran through the crowd. Some recognized the steel trident on the coin Reed had stepped on. Others noticed the orthopedic brace beneath Elias's sleeve. A few murmured that something felt wrong, very wrong. But Reed was convinced he was right, and that conviction fueled every cruel word. Elias's silence was not fear. It was restraint. Had he chosen to move, truly move, Reed would have been on the ground before he knew what hit him. But that wasn't who Elias was. Violence, for him, had always been last resort, not first instinct. Reed didn't know that. He mistook stillness for weakness. Silence often looks like surrender to the loudest men. Elias once wrote in a private journal, but silence is the language of those with nothing left to prove. Bewijs tandars arn moral tesson. A few people filmed on their phones but from too far away to have clear audio. A mother pulled her teenage son behind her, though the boy's gaze lingered on Elias with curiosity, and maybe admiration. One elderly man stepped forward as though to intervene, but his wife tugged gently at his coat, shaking her head. Fear of conflict is a powerful silencer. Reed felt emboldened by the crowd's passivity. He shoved Elias again, harder this time. Thought you'd show off to impress people. Thought you'd play hero. Well, you messed with the wrong cop today. The old man who had tried to intervene winced. A young woman whispered, "This is wrong," under her breath, but still, no one acted. Only one person in the entire crowd looked at Elias with understanding, a teenage girl, wearing an oversized hoodie and clutching her phone. She recognized the insignia. Her brother was a Marine. She stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sir, I think he's actually..." Reed snapped. "Stay out of it." She stepped back, but her eyes stayed locked on Elias. Something about his expression, or rather, the lack of anger in it, left her breathless. It was the face of a man who had already fought enough battles for 10 lifetimes. Reed dragged Elias toward the cruiser door, muttering more insults under his breath. Across the street, unnoticed by Reed, a black SUV pulled into a parking space. A man stepped out, a tall figure with silver hair, wearing a nondescript jacket but moving with unmistakable military precision. He saw the cuffs. He saw the officer. He saw the calm, unresisting man whose silence spoke volumes, and the silver-haired man froze. Recognition hit him like a punch. He knew that face. He knew that posture. He knew the man standing silently against the cruiser. "Ward," he whispered. He began walking toward the scene, not rushing, but with the steady determination of someone who understood exactly what kind of moment this was. This man was Admiral Jonathan Hale, retired, but still revered in military circles as the kind of leader legends were built around. And he was Elias Ward's former commanding officer. The crowd didn't know who he was. Reed certainly didn't. But the shift in the story had already begun. Reed shoved Elias one more time, attempting to force him into the back seat. Elias's shoulder jolted painfully, scar tissue pulled, a deep wound under the brace throbbed sharply. Still, he didn't speak. A murmur rippled through the crowd, something protective, something rising. The teenage girl whispered, "Why isn't he fighting back?" The old man answered quietly, "Because men like him don't need to." Reed barked, "Get in the car." And then, finally Elias spoke, but only 3 words. Not a plea, not a protest, just calm truth. Reed snarled, "I'm done checking things for you people. Get in." Elias's jaw tightened. Not in anger, but in something far deeper. A quiet sorrow, the kind that comes from realizing someone will choose hatred even when handed the truth. A voice cut through the tension, not loud, but sharp enough to slice through every other sound. "Officer," the silver-haired man said, "remove the cuffs." Reed spun around. "Who the hell are you?" The man stepped fully into view. There are people whose presence alone makes the world straighten, as if reality remembers who deserves respect. Admiral Hale was one of those people. But Reed didn't recognize him. I said. The admiral repeated, remove the cuffs. Now, Reed scoffed. Back off, old man. The admiral didn't move. That man you've arrested is Elias Ward, Navy SEAL, Silver Star recipient, wounded in action 6 weeks ago. And you're about to lose your badge if you take one more step in the wrong direction. The crowd stiffened. Reed laughed bitterly. Silver Star my ass. He couldn't even produce a real ID. The admiral reached into his coat and pulled out his own military identification, heavy, unmistakable, engraved with authority. The proof he gave you was legitimate, Hale said. You refuse to look. That is not just ignorance, it is malice. Reed's eyes flickered with the first hint of doubt. Uncuff him, Hale ordered. And then he added the line that would echo across the crowd died. A man's silence does not give you permission to disgrace him. Reed hesitated. The admiral stepped closer until the officer felt the full, immovable force of a lifetime of command. I will say it one last time, Hale said quietly, remove the cuffs. Reed swallowed hard. He obeyed. The moment the cuffs clicked open, Elias didn't rub his wrists or look triumphant. He simply nodded once at the admiral, a gesture of respect deeper than words. The crowd watched as the truth settled over them like heavy smoke. The teenage girl whispered, I knew he wasn't lying. The old man added, some people earn respect, others just demand it. Reed attempted to salvage his pride. He still resisted. You assaulted an injured service member. Hale cut in. You ignored evidence, used discriminatory language, escalated without cause, and violated protocol in full view of multiple witnesses. Reed's face drained of color. People pulled out their phones, not to record Elias this time, but to record Reed. Elias finally spoke again softly. Let him be. Hale looked at him. He deserves consequences. Maybe, Elias said, but I don't need revenge. I only needed the truth to stand. The admiral's eyes softened. And Elias added the quote that would stay with every listener. Honor is not proven by shouting the truth. It's proven by standing in it. The crowd fell silent, respectful this time. Hale placed a steady hand on Elias's shoulder, mindful of the healing injuries beneath the fabric. Bystanders stepped aside as they walked together through the parking lot, some bowing their heads, others placing hands over their hearts. The teenage girl wiped tears from her eyes. The old man stood straighter. People didn't applaud, they didn't cheer. They simply gave space. The kind usually reserved for funeral processions and heroes returning home. Reed stood alone, drowning in a silence far louder than any accusation. Some stories end with noise. This one ended with understanding. Because dignity doesn't need volume, truth doesn't need permission, and heroes don't need to shout to be seen. Elias Ward walked away not vindicated by anger, but by honor, the kind no badge, no insult, and no hatred could ever diminish. Before you go, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you want more stories that honor the silent strength of real heroes, make sure to subscribe. Your voice helps keep these stories alive.